Hey everybody, and welcome to Optimizing Your PaintScout Account Settings webinar. My name is Sam, and I'm one of the client success coaches here at PaintScout. And today we're going to be going through the key settings in your account, and I'm going to show you how to tailor them to fit your business. So hopefully by the end of the session today, you're going to know how to customize your branding and estimate details, set up your pricing, tax and default terms, manage user roles, and then also just adjust any other key settings to streamline your workflow. As always, we're going to have a live Q&A session at the end, so definitely stick around for that. So to hop in today, let's just talk about why account settings matter. So your account settings impact everything within your PaintScout from, how your estimates look to how your invoices get sent. So optimizing these settings now can, save you time. It'll also reduce errors, and it's going to make your workflow a lot smoother. So today we're going to go through step by step to make sure that your account is set up exactly how you want it. So I'm going to get started by sharing my screen here. Amazing. Hopefully everybody can see my PaintScout screen okay. Awesome. So when you open up your PaintScout, you're going to be on your dashboard page. So to get to your account settings, you're going to head to your person icon in the top right corner, and then you're going to go to your account settings section. So once you're in your account settings section, immediately you're going to see this company information page here. So first of all, you're going to want to come in here and add your company name, your address, your phone number, and then you can also add an additional details section here. So basically any notes that you want to appear in the top left corner of your estimate. Lots of times I see this being used for like a business number or business license number kind of thing. Next, you're also going to have a time zone setting. So you can come in here and adjust your time zone, which will affect your timestamps within PaintScout. The next section that we're going to have here is our branding section. So in here, you can set your logo and your company color. This is going to affect the branding for not only your estimates, but for your PaintScout account as a whole. So if you haven't done that yet, definitely come in here and do that. To do that, you're just going to click on the logo section to upload your logo. And then for your company color, you can click on that section here and you'll see you can paste your hex into that little box. Next up, we have the estimate settings section. And so first up, you're going to see you have this hourly rate portion here. So you can set your hourly rate and keep in mind that this is going to be your overall hourly rate for your account. So this is the rate that you charge your customers per hour. Now, some of you might have a, special hourly rate that you use for different estimate types, and we will get into that in a moment. But for now, this is where you're going to set your general hourly rate. I also want to mention that I'm not going to take the time to go through how to calculate your hourly rate today because we do have a webinar available for how to do that. And if you're curious about that webinar or any of the other webinars that I'm about to mention in our call today, you can find those on our YouTube channel under the webinar playlist section. Next, we're going to have this tax rate section. And so in here, you can set your commonly used tax rates to save you time when you're building estimates. So to add a tax rate, you're going to add the name for the tax rate, the percentage, and then you'll have this box here. If you select it, this tax rate is automatically going to be applied to estimates moving forward. If you don't select it, it'll be saved in your account settings. So that way, when you are building an estimate from that sidebar menu in the calculations tab, you can easily add the tax rate and you don't have to create a custom tax rate each time. Then you're going to have your discount section, which is super similar to the tax rate section. You can add a name for the tax rate. You can add the rate, so whether it's a dollar or a percentage base value. And then once again, choosing whether or not you want it to automatically include that on new estimates moving forward. Hopping down here, we have the rounding style and accuracy section. So you can set your rounding for hours. So you can either round to the quarter hour, half an hour, full hour, or just don't round hours. And then you can also set your rounding for products and materials. So you can either round to the nearest unit, round upwards, or apply no rounding to your materials. Now, I do want to take a moment to talk about rounding materials in PaintScout. Essentially, when you change your rounding settings in here, it will only apply to the product description in the work order. And that's just going to be because we don't want there to be any compound rounding errors on the estimate. So instead of, rounding on each individual surface on the estimate and causing you to overquote, the rounding will only be applied to that product description on the work order. Next up, we have your price rounding, and you can either select no rounding, rounding to the nearest dollar, or always round upwards. Here we have the customer accepted option section. And so essentially, if you're somebody who adds options to the option section of your estimates, by enabling this setting here, you're basically giving your client the ability to click a little button that says add option. And so if your client clicks on that, it'll add it to the estimate and then they can accept it. And then the total of the estimate will include those options. So we do recommend enabling that if you do provide options for your client. It just makes it easier for you and for your client because they don't have to, contact you if they decide they want to move forward with an upgrade. And then finally on this page, we're going to have the client visible expiry section. So if you would like your estimates to expire after a certain period of time, you can set that in here. Just keep in mind that if a client did try to open up an estimate after it's expired, they would just be met with a message that tells them to contact their estimator. Awesome. So now we're moving into the estimate type section of your account settings. So estimate types in PaintScout are used to categorize the different services that your company offers. So it's important to understand that estimate types don't have to get too granular. I usually recommend creating different estimate types when you have like different sets of production rates. Maybe you need to use a different hourly rate. Maybe you have a specific presentation for that estimate type, or maybe you really need to keep things separate for reporting purposes, or you have a separate set of terms and conditions for that estimate type. That said, you can use templates to get more granular within these estimate types. So for example, you might have an estimate type that's for residential exterior, and then you're going to have some templates for, let's say, fences, decks, and then maybe a repaint within that estimate type. So if I were to click on one of these estimate types here, you're going to see you have a spot to set a special hourly rate. So if you leave it blank, it's just going to use that general hourly rate that we did set in our settings already. If not, you can set that special rate here and it'll use this rate instead of the general one. Scrolling down, we're going to have the default presentation section where you can assign a specific presentation, and then a default term section where you can set a special or default set of terms. Hopping into the disclaimer section, here you can set a disclaimer for when estimates are accepted, when additional work is accepted, or when estimates are being declined. So it's important to set disclaimers in here not only for clarity, but also for legal protection. Here we have the template section of your account settings. Now we do have an entire webinar dedicated to building templates. So again, I'm not going to take a ton of time to go over templates here. But what's important to understand is that templates can really save you time when you're building estimates. It can also promote consistency between all of your sales reps. So an example of a template would be one like this, where we've already added info about our prep, we've already added info about our deposit, we're talking about the products we're using, we're talking about our application method, and then we've also pre-built out an area, so that way when we go to build an estimate, all we have to do is enter the dimensions and then adjust the surfaces as needed to quickly build out that estimate. Next up, we have the invoice settings section. Again, we do have a webinar available regarding invoicing in PaintScout, so definitely check that out if you're curious. But in the settings section of your account settings for invoices, you can set a due date. You can also enable automatic invoice generation. And so by enabling automatic invoice generation, anytime an estimate's accepted in PaintScout, an invoice will automatically be created for you, which will obviously save you time instead of you having to manually create an invoice every single time an estimate's been accepted. Then we have this payment method section in here. So your account should come preloaded with a list of payment methods, but you can always add additional ones. And payment methods are used to keep track of your recorded payments on invoices in PaintScout. Now we're going to hop into this production rate section here. Now, PaintScout has a ton of resources available when it comes to production rate estimation. So I'm not going to take a ton of time again on this section either. We've got videos regarding production rate estimation. We have webinars about how to calculate production rate. We have articles. So you can definitely find all of that stuff on our YouTube. But what I will say regarding production rates here is just that obviously enter the production rates that you typically use into your account settings to save you time and to promote consistency across all users. Also, you can always, in each production rate, set a default product here. So that way the system does auto calculate the amount of paint you need and then the price to charge your customer. So you don't need to be manually doing that for every single surface on every single estimate. Then we're going to have the area name section in here. So these are just different areas of a home. Again, your account should come preloaded with a pretty hefty list for you, but you can always come in and add additional areas if you need to. If you find there's something that you're typically adding to an estimate, add it to your account settings so it's just a single click instead of having to, retype that on every single one of your estimates. Perfect. Here we have the product section, really straightforward. Upload the products that you use the most into this product section here. So essentially, you're going to want to go through, you'll add the name for the product, definitely select the estimate type. So that way, when you're building an estimate, you don't have to scroll through a super long list of, products because you have them separated out by the different types. Add your coverage rates, add your marked up price per gallon. And then obviously when you're working on an estimate, it's going to be really quick to add these instead of having to retype and then find your pricing for every single one. Now we're in the line item section of your account settings. So obviously you should be using line items for any information that you would, typically add to the estimate for your client. By doing this in the account settings, you're going to save time on each estimate instead of having to retype the same things over and over and over again. Of course, it's also going to promote consistency for your tonality and between all of your sales reps. And obviously there's going to be some situations where you have a line item that might be super specific, but I do recommend trying to generalize it if you can, add it to your account settings, and then that way, you can adjust it on a case-by-case basis and add additional details when necessary. That way it's saved in your account and it's going to be quick to add in the future. Then we have your terms and conditions section. So in here, you can upload a set or multiple sets of terms and conditions. Now, everybody's account is going to come preloaded with the PaintScout default set of terms and conditions, but it is really important to understand that these terms have not been reviewed by a lawyer. So we recommend coming in here, taking a read through them, adjusting them as necessary, or even better, creating your own set of terms and conditions that have been approved by a lawyer. You can also create multiple sets and assign them to specific estimate types. Lots of times I'll see people who have, a set of terms and conditions for residential projects, a set of terms and conditions for commercial projects, and then maybe a set of terms and conditions for something like floor coatings. It really just depends on the business. But of course, the point is create your terms and conditions, get them approved, and then make sure that you know them. Then we're hopping into the presentation section here. We do have a webinar available regarding how to build presentations from start to finish. So again, I will not be going through building presentations today. But what's important to understand here is that obviously presentations are great for providing value and helping you win more jobs, but you can also be using your presentations to add more information that you don't necessarily want on the estimate, but that you still want included, for your client. So an example would be somebody who likes to compare the different products that you use. Instead of adding all of that info to an estimate and overcrowding it and making it complicated and difficult to read for your customer, creating a presentation page that has that info for them. We're almost at the end here. Now we have the email template section. So first up, we have emails sent by your team, which are emails that you're sending manually. So when you're sending an estimate, an invoice, a work order, or a payment request. Then we also have these emails sent automatically. So these are triggered when something happens in PaintScout, such as an estimate is accepted, an estimate is declined, and then a payment is received. So everybody's account will come preloaded with the PaintScout defaults. Again, though, we do recommend coming in here, tweaking them, really dialing them in. Obviously, something like this that triggers when the estimate is accepted, we really want to make sure that your client knows what the next steps are. So make sure to come in here and adjust this as necessary. You can also use these things, which we call estimate tags, and they basically just pull information from the estimate for you, so you don't have to manually retype those things on every single email that's getting sent. Then we have the auto follow-up section. So obviously create some auto follow-up so that way it saves you time in the long run. You don't have to manually follow up with clients as much. So to create a follow-up, it's pretty simple. You just follow the 4 steps. So the first is selecting your document type. It can either be for estimates or for invoices. Step 2 is selecting the type that this follow-up will send for. So whether that's let's say an interior, or if you just want to send it for all types, you can select that in here. Step 3 of 4 is also going to be to set your parameters. So, if an estimate's been sent but has not been viewed, or maybe the estimate's been viewed but has not been responded to after a set time period, you're going to enable that here. And then finally, step 4 is just building out that actual follow-up and writing the email and or text message if you want. So obviously by creating follow-ups, you can get super granular and you can create them for different estimate types and save you a lot of time on that stuff. Yeah, and then also provide consistency, between all of your sales reps. Next, we're hopping into the integrations page here. So you can connect with your favorite platforms to, make your life easier and save you time when building estimates in PaintScout. So as an example, you can connect with something like Company Cam to easily add photos to your estimates. You can connect to Stripe or PaintScout Payments, which is currently in beta, to take credit card payments directly in-app. You can connect to something like WiseTac to offer financing for your clients and have that integrated directly on the estimate. And then you can even connect to your other favorite platforms, like your CRM or your project management software through Zapier, to automate your tech stack as much as possible. Now, the last section that I want to go through here is not available on the account that I'm currently using. So I'm just going to pull up a screenshot for everybody here. But for all of you, below the integrations tab, you should have that billing section that you'll be able to see. So first up, in the billing section, you can always see your past invoices and receipts for your PaintScout subscription, if you're curious and need to see those. You're also going to have the user management section. In here, you can add additional users. You can decide whether they're going to be like a sales user or an admin user. You can also adjust permissions when it comes to things like reporting. And then finally, you're also going to have that support tab down there where you can easily contact support if you need to. Cool. So now that we've gone through pretty much everything in the account settings section, let's just talk about some best practices for a well-optimized account. First of all, keeping your settings updated, especially as your business grows. So obviously, as your business grows, things change, systems need tweaking. So of course, just coming in here and making sure that your settings are always up to date, so that way they're working the way that you want them to. And then secondly, we really recommend using features like line items, production rates, templates, just to really make sure that there's a consistency across PaintScout for all of your users, all of your sales reps. That way, you're all using the same tone, you're using the same verbiage, everything is the same no matter, who's sending out the estimate or sending the email or sending the follow-up. Awesome. So I know that that was a lot of info in a very short time frame. So we're going to open the floor now to questions. So please drop those in the chat. I think I got some notifications as we were going through, so I'll see if there's any to start with. So first up, you said that your customer is unable to add the option even though this setting is on. Okay, so what I would do in that situation is I would double check the estimate for yourself to see what it looks like on your end. Let me just see if we have a good one in here that I can use. Let me just quickly add a contact. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to add something to the option section. So what I would do is go to that drop-down menu next to send, hit the preview and accept button, and scroll down. Because preview and accept is going to be an exact copy of what your client sees from their end. So if you do this and you see they have the add option button, it's possible that your client just doesn't see that little button there. And if that's the case, I would call them, kind of walk them through it. If it actually is missing on your end, please contact support and they can make like a bug ticket. We'll look into it for you, see if there's an issue going on. Daniel, you're not finding the communications tab. Okay. So PaintScout used to have the communication section under your profile. So if you don't see communications under your account settings, that means it's actually going to live under your profile. Now, if you want us to update your account for you and move your communications to your account settings, that's totally okay. We can do that for you. Just make sure to reach out to support and we'll get that sorted. Otherwise, you can definitely just use the communication section from your profile. Just keep in mind that's where you're going to find them. Is there a way to mark up products? Good question. So Everything in PaintScout should already be marked up. And what I mean by that is your hourly rate is going to already be marked up, and then your product pricing is already going to be marked up. So the pricing that you enter in here when you're entering your products, that should already be marked up. We don't have anywhere in PaintScout where you're going to be entering like the price that you're paying for paint. Is there a premium to integrate Company Cam? No, not within PaintScout. If you have a Company Cam account, you can connect them. When it comes to pricing on Company Cam's end, I'm not too familiar with that, so definitely reach out to them if you're curious. Oh yeah, exactly. Okay, so yes, if your client was not seeing the options, the add option button, and the estimate was already accepted, that would be the issue. So the option section is only really used for before the estimate's been accepted. If the estimate's already been accepted, at that point, it becomes a change order. And so if you're not sure how to do change orders, aka an additional work order in PaintScout, we do have an entire webinar on that. So again, check out our YouTube channel and look for the invoicing and additional work order webinar. On options, how can I quickly grab the total and add a percentage to quickly show paint upgrades? Good question. So paint upgrades are a little bit tricky just because you do have to take the time to kind of calculate, what the price increase would be. So what I tell most people is when you're working on an estimate, you're going to go to the sidebar menu over here and you're going to go to the calculations tab. When you go to the calculations tab, you can click on that total button here where it'll show you a breakdown of your labor versus your materials. So whoever created this estimate did not add any materials, which is why it's 0. But usually your material price would be in here. So then what I typically tell people is you need to understand how much it would be to upgrade paint. So if you know it's a 5% increase to upgrade from, let's say, super paint to duration, then all you would do is create a line item down here. We'll call it a paint upgrade. And all you're doing is quickly calculating 5% of your materials for that increase. So if we knew it was going to be an additional $200, that's what we would do in here. Hopefully, we're going to have some improvements in the future. We can't make any promises, but for now, that's the way that we do paint upgrades in PaintScout. Michael said, any new features in the works? Would love a more robust CRM to manage projects. Very exciting. We will be releasing some new features in the spring. I can't give out too much info, but definitely keep an eye out for those. Natalie, when setting up auto follow-ups, does that carry over to everyone on the account or just the person we're logged in as admin? It'll carry over for everybody in the account. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody so much for joining today. I really appreciate it. As always, look out for an email later this week. We're going to send you a link to the webinar recording as well as a quick feedback survey. So we want you to, let us know what topics you'd like to see next. Please don't forget to join our PaintScout Pros group. First of all, to stay in the loop for upcoming webinars, but also just to connect to other PaintScout users. And once again, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.